Yep.
Hi everyone. Welcome to FTP Protocol or Free to Play Protocol. I'm with unknown name as he's rebranding at the moment, but I'm sure he'll figure it out soon. We're
What's
gonna
going on, ladies and gentlemen?
Paladins. We've been playing it. You have opinions. I have opinions. Uh, what is Paladins? How do we describe Paladins?
Paladins is what I think of when is what Overwatch wanted to be.
Is what Overwatch
Um,
wanted to be. Damn.
I feel like it has a better concept of what Overwatch has. I think the diverse champions in Paladins is better than the diversity of champions in Overwatch.
I agree
And
with you.
I think if Paladins wasn't a thing, Overwatch would have no competition. The only thing I could see happen with that is Overwatch wouldn't have any chance to change, which they attempted to change with Overwatch 2, but it was a total flop.
See, I boycott Blizzard. I don't play any of their games. I played Overwatch 2 twice on a friend's account and I hated it.
I play Overwatch due to certain friends I play with, but um if they didn't play it, I wouldn't play it just because the concept of the game compared to Paladins is horrible. I mean, I think the concept of 6v6 is better than the 5v5 that they changed to, and I think that's where they flopped, and I think that's why Paladins has such a upside to creating a second one and or the rumors of Paladins Reforged, and I think it's
Yeah.
gonna up the game's popularity a lot.
Well, what I like about the rumors of Paladin Reforged is we're not going to be losing characters or anything like that. It's just getting updated. With
And I
Overwatch 2, it's Overwatch 2. It's not Overwatch, it's its own separate entity. Where I feel like Paladins has always strived to introduce characters, balance the game, and not change the game itself. We're not, you know what I mean?
and I think that's where Overwatch failed because they changed the whole dynamic of the game. Going from 6v6 to 5v5 is a huge deficit to any strategy that the game had because there's multiple tanks in there that you need a shield tank to be able to play, kind of like Paladins. There's a couple tanks that you need a shield tank to play in, but now it changes the whole diversity of the game. Yeah, the games might feel a little faster, but you basically destroyed how certain champions can be played.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that's the issue. But what we need to talk about more is Paladins itself, and that's what we're here to talk about. We're not here to trash on Overwatch 2 as much as it's probably going to be brought up because they are very similar games. They are clones,
Yeah,
and let's be real, they are clones of each other's.
they're very often grouped together in conversation. Why would you play Paladins over Overwatch or vice versa? But when you play Paladins, like the gameplay, the game feel, the strategy of having to communicate with your team members to make sure your team has no like overt flaws and the people playing play the characters very well seems to be a huge part of the game that I can appreciate. Where Overwatch, with my experience, sorry to bring it back to that, um, if you're a healer, you're really just a healer. You're not DPSing, you're not doing any sub roles. Where with Paladins, you're not just playing a tank, you might be playing a sub role as a healer or something along those lines, which I really like and really appreciate.
Well, and I would bring it up. I mean, I've played a decent amount of Overwatch. There is a lot of sub roles in Overwatch, but people don't use it as a sub role. They'll lock in as a healer and use a healer that is made for DPS and healing, but only focus on DPS, which there's actually a meme going around about one of the characters that we're not going to get into, but people know what I'm talking about when I bring that up. The sub role difference in Paladins compared to Overwatch, is a huge difference because no matter what, you have to focus on um either or both. Because if you don't focus on both, you're screwed. In Overwatch, there's no card system, and I think that's what Paladins has an edge on is the card system,
Hmm.
because no matter what your abilities, you're gonna want to focus on both roles. Overwatch, you can choose because you don't have to buy cards or anything.
Right.
In Paladins, the card system makes you use your sub role depending on what character it is, and having that sub role is a big game changer between, like you said, tanks with healing, DPS healers, self healing, DPS, healing DPS. It has wonders that will make the game keep growing and get bigger than it is. It just needs more.
Community. It
Um,
needs bigger community.
Not even the community. It needs more promoting.
Yeah, I agree.
You have all these big streamers, Overwatch 2, Overwatch 2, Overwatch 2. When in reality, the gameplay is better in Paladins. The community is better in Paladins. Now, yes, but communities have their flaws.
Oh,
You're still gonna have
yeah.
toxic people, and I still think the biggest problem with these games, even with Overwatch, is people play these games solo. And I'm not talking about solo as in solo queue. I'm talking about they don't go in with a mic. They don't go in trying to talk to their team. And I think that's the biggest problem with a lot of games nowadays.
Hmm.
But the problem is people come from a game like Overwatch and they think if they say anything, they're gonna get harassed. And Overwatch 1 and 2, no matter what you say, you're instantly harassed no matter what. There's
I
very few games where
I've never really had an issue while playing Paladins of harassment, which is super nice. Like it always seems like the teamwork aspect is first and foremost. Where like, if you're gonna run a Victor, you're gonna do some self healing, and you can just type in chat self heal Victor, and everybody's gonna know. Okay, so if there's a Grover, he doesn't need to focus Victor because Victor's going to be doing flanking tactics and things like that, which isn't his natural role. There's always those sub roles that completely change the power dynamic of the team. And you mentioned cards, but we should also state the buy system that is similar to CSGO, where you want to level up your in-game cards that also bonus and make the match feel different every time.
yeah, I think that's a big hitter for me because I played a lot of CS:GO. It makes you think, and you got to look at the other team comp. The fact that you can look at the scoreboard and see what they're building helps you choose what you want to put towards yours. Or say you have a tank that's got a shield. You're gonna want to get Wrecker because
Hmm.
Wrecker just destroys shields. And you don't. And it's not like everybody you're gonna play against has a shield tank, so you don't have to do Wrecker that game. You can do more of self heal or kill to heal or
Yeah,
it changes the game because you're not doing the same exact thing every time. Now, don't get me wrong, I've played it where I've played healers or certain tanks where you have to do the certain cards every time.
right.
But that comes with the support role and the frontline role. You have to do things that are going to benefit your character. So if you're playing a tank, you're going to want more health. You're going to want to have your shield generate better. You're going to want, better abilities to build what you're doing as your role. Now, DPS and healers, they can switch it up.
Yeah,
But for the
typically.
front line and support, you really can't because you need those certain cards. Now, you might get them in different orders depending on how your team's playing. But, as a support and as a front line, I still think you need those certain cards. But it still makes the game feel different because you're not buying each one the same time. Like, this is the card I got to buy first. This card I got to buy second. No, it,
Right.
it changes depending on how the game's going.
Because one of the things I noticed is with the card system, you can build 6 decks. So you can have 6 different types of ways to play that character, and you'll always change up how you play that character depending on what you're going up against. There's a big difference between fighting a Fernando and a Grover or a Fernando and a Khan. Um, every single time, it's like, okay, I'm gonna need to run a lifesteal and veteran or something along those lines because maybe you're fighting an Inara, so having, life steal is greatly beneficial in that regard because Inara's health pool is insane and you need to bump up your health bar. And things like that make a huge difference in how you construct a team in every single situation. And I love that about Paladins. Like the characters themselves are not only special and unique, but you get to make them even more special and unique multiple times every time you play them.
Unless you're me who finds builds that I like and I use it constantly, but
That's
talking
just
about
maining.
builds talking about builds though, I feel like you don't see a lot of people with the same builds. I don't think there's a meta per se for each character because you can go on YouTube or any other site, Reddit, anything,
Hmm.
and look up builds and you can play it and they say it's the meta and that's what everybody uses and your game style it could be trash.
Right.
I'm against meta game styles. I'm against doing what everybody else does. I always try to build my own build.
Hmm.
But I still, no matter what, every amount of games I've played, I don't see people using the same build. Everybody has their own build to their own play style, and that's unique. You go to Overwatch, everybody has the meta.
Hmm.
The meta champions, the meta gameplay, everything you gotta do. Paladins, it's different. Everybody has a different build, so it changes
Well,
the meta of the game.
I was
Because you're
very
not gonna get the
surprised.
same Grover, you're not gonna get the same Fernando, you're not gonna get the same Drogo.
Hmm.
The only meta in this game that we'll get to later that angers me is 2 characters, but we'll get to that later. Um,
Well,
but
I mean, okay. What was really surprising is when we full stacked and I was using a Saris, and our team at first was like, Saris? Really? And then I was like, yeah, I'm going to lock people's down and so they can't use their abilities. I'm going to stun. And I'm not a focused healer, but I'm still a healer at the end of the day. Like, I do my healing part and I also do my shutdown part. Like, I'm playing jungle as a healer, which is very odd for most people, but that comes with the territory of what Paladins is. And that is not a meta based game. It's not. I love that.
what I what also I enjoy is, we had a lot of talk before we played with a 5 stack, who we thought were good characters, who were like, "Oh, we're never gonna play as them. They're just horrible." And, I've seen, after the 5 stack broke and you had to get off,
Hmm.
there's certain characters that we thought were absolutely horrible that I've watched a couple of these kids just go off with that I would
Maeve.
never thought of used in my life, like Dredge.
Hmm.
Dredge, people, we were like, oh, he's bad. Yeah, the kid went 27-0 with like 32 assists,
That's insane.
and that was 27 kills with 32 assists. He had like 9 solo kills,
That's really impressive.
and it goes to show you that a group of people might think certain characters are bad, but then one person come along and absolutely dominate a game with them, and you're like, okay, maybe I'm just playing him wrong, or I don't understand his mechanics enough to build up those kills, or it's interesting to see because in Overwatch there's characters that people don't use
Right.
at all,
Hmm.
and in this, I was going into like, well, these characters I'm never going to use, but now after seeing that, it's making me rethink of like, okay, this isn't Overwatch. These characters all have a special role, and you find out the right card system, the right way to play them, you can dominate a match.
Like Maeve, like I don't like Maeve personally. I don't play as a Maeve, but when you see an elite player using a Maeve and they're going 26-0, it's supremely impressive because Maeve is a very difficult character to learn. Or a Xin. Xin is also a very difficult character to learn, but people absolutely devastate when using Xin. And that's another thing I really enjoy about Paladins is there is a level of balance to every single match. Like, you can get absolutely stomped, but at the end of the day, if you would have chosen different cards, if you would have chosen a different class, because you load into the game with your build, right? You have your 15 stack cards, then you're prompted to select a class, then mid game you're told to buy more class items. So like everything compounds throughout the match, and you're always thinking, you're always being strategic, and there is no point where you have to stop and you can just be like, I'm just going to play this like Call of Duty, because if you play it like Call of Duty, you're going to get slapped. It's not
Oh,
going to work.
100%. And that's the problem is you do got people that come in and be like, I'm gonna be Victor, or I'm gonna be Vivian and play like Call of Duty and get trash and never pick the game up again
Right.
because they're used to just owning people, and that's the problem. And if people would give the game some time and not play it like another game they've played, and even Overwatch.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, I've taken some comparisons from Overwatch, playing Fernando and then playing as I forgot his name in the tank because I haven't played in forever over there. They're basically the same character, but they still play differently because of the dynamic of the game.
Mhm. I feel like in this conversation, we've kind of just astuded that Overwatch is like super basic, and if you want a hardcore experience, you play Paladins. Even though it has like a childhood aesthetic, like a more cartoony aesthetic, it is way more involved.
I wouldn't say cartoony aesthetic. I'd say more of the natural anime look.
Okay, I can respect that.
Overwatch is more of the yeah, it's got a little bit of the anime in it, but it's toned down. You
Hmm.
look at Paladins, there's a lot of like Bomb King. He's
Right.
a giant bomb.
Yeah.
Grover, big tree. Like it's just you wouldn't see something like that in Overwatch. You only realistically like if you say anime, the one guy who's a giant robot, but he's a security robot, so it plays into the lore. But this is more of fantasy and anime
Hmm.
compared to more of a realism type in Overwatch.
Right.
And the more I play Paladins, the more I'm liking the anime aspect because it gives a difference to the characters.
Hmm. Yeah, that's true. And they even have like voice dialogue and lines, and you can unlock more voice dialogue and lines and things like that that really do play into the more of a anime aesthetic, more of a comical feel. Like the characters don't take everything super seriously.
And each skin has its own voice line.
Hmm.
And it's
Yeah,
multiple voice lines. It's not just one.
that's super true. Even the taunts, you unlock
Yeah.
tons of taunts for your characters so that each character can be unique in that aspect. There is a huge level of personality that you could put into Overwatch, or not Overwatch, Paladins. I was gonna say you can't put a lot of personality into Overwatch.
Like say somebody is into, getting stoned per se.
Hmm.
Okay? Grover has a mushroom skin
Hmm.
and he sounds and his voice lines sound like he's high all the time.
Yep.
Say someone likes that. That might fit their personality. They might be a healer and be like, "Well, that's me. I'm going to use that skin."
Hmm.
And they like it. Now you go to Victor. There's a skin that is Doom guy
Right.
essentially. And maybe that's as a, he played Doom growing up. That's all he played was Doom or she or he whatever. Just play Doom. And like, "Oh, wow, I like the play style of Victor, but I also loved Doom. I'm going to do what I got to do to get that skin."
Right.
It helps people so much to even get anything to fit their personality in this game.
Right.
Like Pip. Pip, there's a female version of Pip.
True.
It helps out the female audience
That I do
because
really like that about Paladins, how there really is no gender identity occurring within it. Like every character seems like it has a female or male variant in the skin layout. And I would like those to be free personally, or at least a variant to be free at all times. But I do really like the fact that like there's a female version of Lex. There's all kinds of really fun characters that you can mess around with and really build it out to be your own.
I think that's what a lot of games are missing.
I agree. But
But
this game is free to play. What do you
and
think of
that's
the
the
pay to play?
biggest thing. Pay to play, I don't have a problem with it. I mean, pay to play as in like buying the game or pay to play as in
Like, it has a battle pass. You have to buy the chests. You have to buy the diamond currency in order to open chests.
if it's free to play, I don't mind it. I would spend probably depending on how much hours of the game I have or if it's a game I'm just picking up and I kind of like it, I would probably pay to the amount of what a normal game costs.
Hmm.
Um,
So you don't think that this game's pay to play is egregious? It's not too aggressive. Like anybody can still pick it up and have a good time.
yeah, yeah. With the weekly characters unlocks you get is
Oh,
the biggest thing.
the rotations.
The rotation of the weekly free players is the biggest thing because it's gonna give you the aspect of okay, well, I wanted to try this person. I was gonna buy the money to get him, but now I realize he sucks and I don't like how he plays. So that saves you from spending the money.
Right.
Or you don't have to spend any money at all because, like, okay, he's in rotation. I'll find another character when he's not in rotation. It makes you play a diverse set of characters because with the weekly rotation, you can play different characters each week, and
Right.
it helps you get, a diverse sense of the game and a diverse sense of characters,
What what
and that's
I
the biggest thing.
what I personally really like is even though this game's free to play and there's a pay to play aspect, the Trials of the Realms are free and every single character can be bought with in-game currency. And the in-game currency is not hard to get.
No, not at all, and that's what's nice, and there's challenges where it gives you 50K.
Hmm.
Most characters are 30 to 60. So you play for 5 hours, you get at least 3,000 coins, and then if you do the Trials of the Realms, you instantly have a new character if you do it.
Right.
Now, yes, the ones for 50,000 coins are going to be a lot harder,
But that's the point. That
but that is the point.
hmm there is still that sense of I'm earning this, which I can appreciate.
But free to play games are great in an aspect of you get to play it for free, but people need to realize for development and updates and continuing to support the game, they have to make money somehow.
Hmm.
Now we're talking about a game that was paid to play. That just recently, big article. People are actually not upset about it. Some are. I don't mean to take the focus away from Paladins, but Squad, you had to paid to play the game.
Hmm.
It's been out for 8 years. 8 years they had free updates, free DLC, and now they finally came out and said, "Hey, we know we said we'd never have paid DLC, but we're gonna do paid emotes."
Right.
And the reason they're doing that is because they need to be able to continue to support the game. I don't have a problem with paid emotes. They're still giving you maps for free, everything else for free. But for 8 years, that game of that magnitude with that community, they gave people things for free for 8 years after initially buying the game.
Hmm.
And now they're like, okay, we're going to sell emotes. People need to realize that's part of the game.
Well, yeah, and
And
and there's a
if they
big
want continued support for their game, they got to be able to get some sort of income. Because at that point, for that type of game, everybody's bought the game, so now they're not getting that generalization of income, and now they need to add emotes. But for
right.
Paladins, the game's free, but they need that support because now they're not getting any income from people buying the game. They're getting it from people buying coins or chests to get skins.
Hmm. And
I get it's like a loot box system, but for a free to play game, you need that
and the loot box
because
is
they need to
not
continue it.
necessary, and that's what I really like is like the aesthetic stuff is all what you're buying. You're not buying anything like a character unless you want to. And like the battle pass is almost all aesthetic. So you can pay $7 and play the game and do the battle pass and get all the aesthetic stuff, but you'll also get coins, which means you're also getting characters. Like Paladins has done a great job of making a pay to play or a free to play game, and the pay to play aspects are not going to give you a massive advantage over other players. Like you still have to be good at the game, you still have to work as a team, you still have to get the cards. There are no buyable cards. Like there's none of the money goes towards the gameplay itself, and that's huge.
Yeah, there's no pay to win. There's no anything like that because in the end, it's cosmetics,
Hmm.
and you can live without cosmetics.
Absolutely. In a way, like I shit on Fortnite quite often, but in a same vein, Fortnite does the same thing where you're not really buying anything that gives you a heightened advantage against other players in Fortnite either. It's not Warface where you're buying guns and things like that are meta and will absolutely decimate people in 3 shots. Which we'll get into other free to play games later on. We'll be talking about this from a different perspective later.
Or like COD, where you're actually buying skins that are meta that you can't see in corners.
Right.
You literally buy skins that are all dark and you can't see in dark corners. You're not seeing that. I haven't seen anything in this game where there's certain firearms or character skins that give you an advantage at all.
No, I don't think that's a thing.
And I think that's what's good about this game. Like it brings it back to full circle to
Hmm.
metas. There's really not a meta.
It's your team, it's your skill, it's how well you can organize and play as a team. There's a big social aspect in Paladins that doesn't really exist in many other titles today.
Now, some can argue that there's a meta team comp,
Oh,
but
sure.
not necessarily, because you can run with one support, three flank, one damage, one frontline. Or am my math wrong? My math might be wrong. Hold on. But it comes down to, you can make a team comp of anything, and if you have competent teammates or teammates that communicate and know their role,
Hmm.
even with one healer, you can win. I mean, we played a game where we played as 4 healers just for the fun of it, and we got stomped out. We couldn't even heal fast enough because we weren't doing enough damage output.
Hmm. They saw that we were running 4 healers, and all they had to do was use character abilities to stop our healing progress, decrease our healing output. And as soon as they started doing that, the splash damage on top of it, we were done. There was no chance. We got hit once, we were done.
Yeah, like some of the game footage that you got too. Pip.
They're seeing it.
Pip was absolutely destroying us.
Hmm.
And we ended up playing that Pip again. And instead of me being a healer, we had, I was a DPS. I think I was Vivian. And I mean, I just destroyed that Pip. And he was like what, 15-1 and something? I can't remember the numbers, but after that he went 1-7. The next game we played him. He
Right.
absolutely dominated the game against our 5 stack. And then we changed our team comp to what we would normally do instead of just messing around and being 4 healers, and he went 1-7. He was the best player in the game the way we played, and
Yeah.
then he absolutely went 1-7.
We absolutely crushed them after that point. And that just comes down to, we were 5 stacking, we didn't know each other's play styles just yet. And then once we finally organized our play styles, that was it. Like we didn't have any more issues.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, even after you got off, we went 28-8.
That's pretty damn good.
What is insane.
Like we lost our first match, then we hadn't lost a single match until the very end.
Yeah.
I mean, that's incredible. And that's just speaks to like the volumes of what Paladins is capable of. You stack up with your team, and most people are, unless they're really good and they can read their team very well, aren't going to be able to stand up against you. And you're not going to have any trouble until you get against another stack or people who are communicating.
And I think that's the reason why I don't solo queue in this game. And let's be honest, solo queuing in any game is horrible, but in this game specifically, the only, jumping back to the community topic, people don't talk.
Yeah.
It's a team game, and that's my biggest pet peeve with a lot of team games. People go into solo queue, but they still don't talk. Like, you're playing I mean, I'm also super competitive, and you're playing a game where you need to communicate with your team and nobody says anything.
Hmm.
Glad nobody, well, I'd rather have people not say anything than be toxic and talk trash to each other. But I think something that needs to change in the world of team gaming, if you solo queue, talk to your teammates.
Yeah. Yeah.
85% of you probably have a microphone of some sort.
Or
Talk to your teammates
if you're on PC, just type. Type.
and just type. Like, it, it takes you out of the game for 30 seconds, or if you're super fast to typing, couldn't even take that long.
Do it in your death.
But communicate with your team. It would make so many solo queue games better. I don't understand. It's one thing I don't
Well,
understand is, why would you go into a game knowing that you need to communicate
and then
and
don't.
not talk?
Yeah.
Especially ranked games. Not even talking about non-ranked games. We're talking about ranked games.
I would say
Like,
just in general, like growing up playing like Halo 2, Modern Warfare 2, everybody put on their mic, everybody was chit-chatting, like, and if you want, so many people think they're going to be like, oh, I'm going to be the next Shroud, I'm going to be the next. No, Shroud isn't just a good gamer, he's good at being a team member. It's more than just skill. Like, you can have all the skill in the world, and if you're the shittiest teammate and you're toxic, nobody's going to want to play with you. Nobody's going to want you on their team.
no, not at all. And I think it's not a problem, but we grew up with LANs. We grew up with everybody in Halo talking, everybody
Mhm.
wanting to talk crap to the other team. Yeah, you still talk trash to your own teammates, but back then everybody wanted a mic. Everybody had to be able to talk. I had an Xbox 360. I need a mic. I need a mic. No matter whether it was a side piece, just a little mic so I could hear my teammates and talk. I wanted to talk.
Right.
I wanted that interaction.
I mean, I would have never been able to go to gold and almost get into platinum in Battlefield 4 if it wasn't for the team. Like all I did, I was just a scout. Like that's what I always tell people. I was just a scout. And then I talk to somebody who actually understands MLG and competitive gaming, rank gameplay, I say I'm a scout. They're like, dude, I want you on my team. You're probably really good at organizing coordinates. You're probably really good at directing the team. And that's what I did. I put the sniper up in their position. I paid attention to where the enemies were coming from. What was their flank opportunity? What was their pincer opportunity? That's what I did. And I don't see that anymore. And I fell off of multiplayer because of it. Everybody's toxic. Everybody's yelling at each other. Call of Duty is super fast paced. Nobody's organizing their team. And I was like, okay, competitive is dead. Well, how is competitive bigger than ever if nobody knows how to talk to each other? It's weird.
It's very weird. But what people need to realize is these people that are these competitive gamers, what's the edge they have over you? Sometimes you might be a better shooter, but they talk to their teammates. They aren't toxic with their teammates.
I will
You
happily
go to
take a
these
death. I will happily take a death if it means my friend can get a revenge strike. Because a
eh,
revenge strike means they have to sit through reload and respawn, which gives us 15 seconds of pressure. And that pressure could be enough for you to plant the bomb, take a flag, or push the enemy back.
and I think that's why some games flop. I mean, we're getting off topic with Paladins, but we're talking about communication. I think it's why some games flop, and there's not to bring another game to this, but we're talking about communication. Hell, Let Loose.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's a World War II squad basically, but there's an actual scout team that's it's two players. The scout team is two players, and the head scout, which is the sniper, needs to communicate with the commander. Half the people that do that just go and snipe. They're like, I'm just gonna go and snipe. I'm not gonna do my role. The scout team in that game is meant to communicate with the commander, tell him where enemy spawn points are,
He's right.
and not even go try to kill people. You go behind enemy line. Your job is to get behind enemy lines and communicate with the commander so he knows where to send people in. And that's what a lot of these games fail is because nobody communicates.
When
It's
we
why a lot of teams fail in Paladins and Overwatch and other games because nobody communicates. I mean, how people go in Call of Duty
Mhm.
in 4v4 squads and doesn't communicate, and you wonder why you get jumped by four people and wonder where your team is because you're 700 meters away. Well, they all landed together. They might not be communicating, but they're pinging and they're staying together, and you're all fine your own. You're like, well, this game's horrible.
Right.
Just communicate.
It,
Communication is what makes and breaks a team.
what I
And in Paladins is why you five stack, you're beating almost every single team that doesn't queue together.
But
And
you
I'll
you'll
I'll put
still
money
get
on it.
smacked. You'll still get smacked if each person is not communicating, they're not playing their role correctly, if you're not organized. Like one of the things in Paladins that we learned very quickly that we have to do is if one player dies and another player dies and you're three members sitting on the point, pull back. Let your team respawn and then repush because you need to retreat. You need to reorganize your team when you lose those key members. Like if you lose both your flankers, your DPS drops through the floor. Like you need to organize and you need to have that advantage. If you're not working with the advantages, you're losing. And then you get on bad rotations. Your next person dies, they're pushing in, and then you're waterfalling. And that's not good for the team. If you're just waterfalling the whole match, you're 1v1ing against five people. It doesn't
Yep.
work. And you'll
And that's that.
when we talk
I
about
see that a lot.
enlisted, because FTP is all about free to play games. Um, and that's another thing. You'll hear me bitch and bitch. I play enlisted. I love enlisted. It's my battlefield game of choice. One of the biggest problems in enlisted is people do not ping and they do not work as a squad. Like, yes, you have your own squad, but if you can move with 3 people close enough together, you have 15 bots following you. Well, in this case, I think it's 12 bots. But still, 12 bots following you into combat is huge. Huge.
It can even be more than that because some you can get 5 people in your squad at a time.
Mhm.
So you have 3 people, that's 15 people.
So you don't think the battle pass is predatory. You think it's balanced very well. Do you have any
Yes.
recommendations though? Like, is this a
Oh, yeah.
game? This is yeah, I agree. Play
I
Paladins.
I recommend it
Paladins is
a
great.
lot. Um, don't be upset when you see, there's gonna be 2 characters that you're gonna hate,
And
and,
Nara?
uh, Rom
Oh, and Nara and Ram. Yep.
and actually Yagharoth.
Oh, Jaeger. Yeah. But once
But I recommend the game. Other than them 2,
you
I recommend the game. I found out that even if they have a Rom or a Yagharoth, it's still beatable,
oh yeah.
but it's tough. If you get somebody that mains Yagharoth or Rom, and it's gonna be hard to win.
Like a
If
like a Grover, Jaegeroth, Saris, Victor, Vivian play is brutal. Is absolutely brutal.
It's
But
horrible.
you can beat it. It's 100% possible. We've seen it, we've done it, and it's
We've
not
lost to
easy.
it.
Yeah, we've lost to it many of times.
I've came to close to smashing my mouse plenty of times
Hmm.
playing a Rom. Not so much Yagharoth, but a Rom. Um,
Now you play a Jaegeroth, like you understand him a bit more.
I still suck with him.
Right. He's
I
tough.
just try to give everybody ringworm.
Well, in conclusion, I guess what we're saying is Paladins is great. Give this game a chance.
It's not gonna hurt you. It's free.
It's
Just
free.
try it.
And thank you for watching the first episode of FTP Protocol.
Peace out, y'all.
Peace out, man. Oh, that was the wrong button.